Hello, everyone. Welcome to Lamplighter. Today I have the privilege of interviewing near-death experiencer Kathy McDaniel. Kathy, would you please introduce yourself for the audience?
I go under the name of MK McDaniel when I'm writing, but that stands for Mary Kathleen, but my friends call me Kathy, and you're welcome to do that. I had an NDE about 24 years ago. It seems impossible to say that, but yeah. And so I've been sent back to share a message. So here I am.
Yeah, I really appreciated running across your story. I mean, I know it's pretty intense, but I think people really need to know about the both the NDEs and what we call the DNDEs, the distressing near-death experiences, to get a more holistic picture of what's going on after we die. Even though we're kind of just really glimpsing the the edge where before you get beyond that gate. Um, I think it's really brave of you to be sharing it, and I appreciate a lot of lessons that I learned from your book. Um, and I think it can help us to maybe avoid having a similar kind of experience when we die.
That's 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 the hope.
Yeah. So, can you share with us summary of your NDE story?
Sure. For those who haven't had it, I'll start at the beginning. I was a good Catholic girl my whole life. My folks were converts. My dad was shot down in World War II, and his plane landed upside down on a beach and caught fire, and he was an atheist. And he prayed to God. He says, if you can get me out of this mess, then I'll become a Catholic, and so will my family. So a few minutes later, some Marines came out from the woods, jungle, and dragged him out of the plane and saved his life. So we became Catholics. And I went to Catholic schools my whole life, all the way up into college. And so I bought the party line. And some of that was that uh, we all have original sin on us. And even though Jesus died for our sins, we still had residual to pay for. Nobody was perfect, and that we would go to a place called purgatory when we died. And this was a place like hell, except you could get out once your sins were burned off. And that's an interesting thing to be taught as a little child, and then to have reinforced. There were ways to get out of hell. Earlier, we were told that there was certain prayers or novenas or extra trips to church, and we would rack up a certain number of indulgence days. So let's say you were an ordinary person, and I don't know how many 100 days you were going to be sentenced when you went to purgatory. You could buy off like 300 if you said a rosary, or 250 if you said and went to mass an extra time. So I believed all this, and it turned into a massive math problem when I died. So I'd been taking care of my best friend who had come down with leukemia. He needed two caregivers to go to Seattle and help him at a research hospital. And so I volunteered. And we were supposed to be up there just 2 or 3 months, but it turned into almost 9 months. And he would get better with all this magic they were doing with all these different chemicals, and then he would get worse and better and worse. It was a very distressing long time, and there was only one other caregiver. And near the end, she broke her foot, so I'm taking care of her too. And by the time he passed away, he was only 53. I was 52. I couldn't believe he died. I mean, I couldn't believe it. I was just heartbroken and exhausted. And there's a horrible flu going around, and I caught it. And in short order, I was down at an emergency room. By the time my friend took me down there was no pulse. They had to throw me in an ambulance, get me to the hospital. I woke up a couple days later, and there's my family that came in from California and Colorado, and I'm going, what's going on? I'm in this little oxygen tent, And they said, well, you're really sick. It's going into something called ARDS, which is acute respiratory distress syndrome or lung failure. And this was a while back, and it's the same type of thing as you got with COVID. It just destroys your lungs. So they said, we're going to put you into a drug-induced coma, so we can throw the medical book at you and try and save you, but it doesn't look good. And so I had no choice, but they put me into this coma. And the last thing the doctor said is, look, we're going to give you something called white amnesia. You won't be able to remember a thing. Okay. Your brain's going offline. Just, it's going to go blank. I said, okay. And hopefully you'll wake up. Okay. So off I went, but I woke up and I didn't know where I was. It was pitch black. There was no sound. I couldn't remember being in the hospital. I was just like in a closet someplace, and there was nothing to do. So I just kind of hung out. And finally, I started seeing kind of a reddish glow happening, and I assumed it was the sun coming up. And I thought, well, good, I'll be able to see where I am. But as it became lighter, all I saw was really this swirling fog. It looked like in a movie production or something with it, but it was reddish and it was getting warm. It smelled terrible. And then I started hearing these screams and moaning. And I thought, oh gosh, this cannot be good. And then this voice shocked me when it came out of the fog and said, do you know where you are? And I'm thinking like crazy. And all I could come up with, and I wished I was wrong, but I said, hell. And then this thing, boom, this maniacal laugh that freaked me out. And I turned and ran from it into the darkness. And it was then I stopped because it was dark, but the thing wasn't near me anymore. And then the lights came up like I was in a movie set or something. And all of a sudden, here's this scene in front of me, and it's like a bombed out city, and it's big, tall buildings like you see in New York, and the windows are blown out, and some of them have just fallen over. And I remember big concrete pieces with rebar sticking out of them. And I mean, imagine yourself just waking up in a situation like that, and you know this isn't a dream. I mean, this is real. It's happening. And there was funny, like creatures. You could get out of the corner of your eye, and you're kind of looking this way and looking that way. And I'm thinking, I'm standing out here, and I'm vulnerable. I need to get someplace safe. Some people wandered up. I thought they were people, and they were like staring at me, like they were waiting for something to happen. That was somebody was going to help them or something. And I didn't know what to do. I just thought I better stay away from them. So I started running, and I tried to get up on this concrete and get over on the other side. I was really thinking if I could get in one of the buildings, maybe I'd find somebody else that survived. But as I crawled to the top, I didn't make that last rung, and it started slipping. And I thought, oh no. And I fell backwards, and I thought, well, I'm going to break every bone in my body on that broken concrete out there. And I just closed my eyes and waited for the pain. But then the lights went out. I couldn't feel anything. And then the lights came up again. And this time I was in a really weird scene. It was like I was in a movie studio. And but the scene, it had lights, all flashes, on it. And it was like a beauty parlor, it was supposed to be, but everything was canted. It was crooked, and the mirrors were crooked. It was like a fun house or something. And I went over there to see what that was all about. And I saw uh, one of my relatives that I knew was alive, but I didn't know I was dead. She was there, and she had two of her friends that I knew. And she looked at me and said, oh, you look like hell. Get up here so we can fix you up. And at the time, it was funny later, but it wasn't funny then. And I got up in the chair and like, what is going on? Well, she wanted to do my hair. She wanted to fix my makeup, because she says, if you look good, you are good. And I thought, what a dumb thing to say. I says, wait a minute, don't you know what's going on here? Where are we? What's going on? And her friends started laughing, and they were laughing at me, like they knew what was going on, but they weren't going to tell me. And so I thought, this is very uncomfortable. She's never been this mean to me. I don't know what's going on. So I got off the stage and I walked to, to the right, and the lights went out. So when the lights go out, you have to stop because you don't know if you're going to step in a hole or what's going to happen. So when the lights came back up again, I'm kind of getting a hang of this. I know it's going to be a surprise. And this is a surprise because there's like this great big thing, demon. The word came to my head. It's like, oh my gosh, where did this come from? And he's got a stick, and he's looking at me. He's hulking over me. He's got hair, and he's awful. And I just stood there like, I'm going to have to run, but I don't know which way. And he says, hey, you want to get out of here? And I thought, I was so surprised. He spoke English. I thought he was just going to growl or something. And I said, being an opportunist, yes, I do. And he said, well, you do one thing for me. I got a job. And if you'll do it for me, then I'll see you get out. And I thought, well, he sounds sincere and I got nothing else to do. So I just said, I thought I'll play along, see what happens. There's got to be more people here someplace. So anyway, he says, well, all you got to do. And as he waved his arm, the lights came up behind him. And as far as I could see, it was blackberry vines. I mean, I'm from Washington. We get these up here and they're just impenetrable. They've got big thorns on them. And I looked at that and I thought, what's he got in mind? And he says, well, all you got to do is just cut all those down for me and I'll get you out. Well, I have cut blackberry bushes before, and it's not that easy. You have to have really thick gloves and shears, and then you've got to have a place to put them. And anyway, I said, sure, whatever. So he hands me these little paper cutting scissors you give kids and said, there you go. So I looked up at him and he's belly laughing. Yeah, he thinks this is really funny. And I thought, well, you jerk, I'm getting out of here. So I scritched down in the berries, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm getting all scratched up. And I start gnawing away on the scissors aren't working worth a darn. And I'm trying to saw this one thing. And finally I got it cut off. And I thought, geez, this is going to take forever. So I put it behind me and I was going to move forward just a little bit. And as I did, that thing from behind me just grew all the way back. And I looked up at this guy, and he's really laughing. He thinks this is so funny that I fell for this. And I thought, all right, I don't like bullies. I don't like being told what to do. I don't like the way this guy's acting. I'm just going to keep cutting and I'll figure something out. Well, the lights went out. And then the lights came back up. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, now what? And I looked up and it's all white and it's like walls, like a hallway, and there's white doors, there's white floors, white ceiling, very bright, a little too bright. And at the end of the hall, I thought, oh no, it's one of those demons again. And this guy has got a metal truncheon or something. And he spots me. And I'm thinking, oh, expletive, I got to get out of here. So I look to the left and right, and there's doors on either side. And while I'm trying to make up my mind which way to go, he's fast. He's right in front of me. And he says, oh, you got a new job. And I said, what is it now? And he says, well, you got to go in that room, take what they give you, and you come across the hall in front of me, and I'm going to be watching you. And you're going to go in this room over here. You're going to put it down. Then you're going to go across the hall, and that's your job. I said, sure. Because I thought, aha, 2 places to go that have doors. There's possibly going to be some people in here. I am going to get out. So I said, okay. And he said, go. So I went into that room. And when I turned around and looked at the room, it was a pretty big room. And it had, I guess they were gurneys. They were all kind of lined up, maybe a bunch of them across and in lines way back. And I thought, what the heck's going on here? And as I looked, I noticed that it was like splayed legs, and they had sheets across them, and then there was a stool in front of it with a doctor, obviously had white garb on, and between the legs of these, I thought, what the heck's going on? So one of these doctors raises his hand, he waves his all bloody and yucky. And he said, "Get over here." And I thought, oh, shoot, I forgot it was my job. So I went over there and I says, "What can I do?" And he says, "Here, put your arms out." So I did. And he took something that he had scraped off this poor woman and put it in my arms. And as I looked at that, I realized what it was, and I was horrified. And I looked at him and he says, "Don't stand there, get going." So I was in shock. And I walked out into the hallway and looked up at this demon like, I can't believe this is what is happening. And he says, "In there, dump it off. You got more to go." And so I just went again in shock into this huge room, looked like a Costco. And there's piles and piles of these little bodies in there. And I was heartbroken. And I thought, oh boy, I can't be doing this. But I put this poor little thing down and I went back in the hall and he says, "Back you go." I said, "No, I'm not going to do it. It's wrong. It's disgusting. And I'm not going to do it." So he raised that truncheon up and he says, "You have no idea what you're getting into. Every time it's going to be worse." And I just shut my eyes and waited for the blow, but the lights went out. And then the lights came up. This happened a number of times. The only respite I seemed to get was sometimes when the lights came up, I would be in this really dark landscape with just what looked like kind of a dirt road going in either direction. It wasn't very wide. I don't know, it wasn't very wide, but it was obviously people had walked on or something had walked on it. So I would turn to the right because that's what you do when you're driving in America. You go to the right and then I'd start walking and I'd start walking. And the only good thing about this was that I could twirl around and do a 360 and see if any of these other demons were sneaking up on me, or it felt like I breathe. I could just try and get my wits together and think, what in the world is happening and how am I going to get out of here? Never thinking I was dead. Somebody asked me once, "Well, didn't you look down and see you had no body?" And it's like, no. How many times a day do you do that? I mean, I was me. I was just me. It was real. So the only thing in the distance was like this reddish glow thing. I don't know. I've been, I was up at the Paradise Fire when that happened, and when the fire was coming on the roadway, we were caught in traffic trying to get out. Talk about hellish. That was pretty bad too. And so that's what it kind of felt like, fire back there, and there was no stars and everything. So everything's dusky and you can't hardly tell what's going on. So I'm trucking down this road, and sometimes I thought, you know what? I think this is just a treadmill. I don't think I'm getting anywhere. Nothing's really changing. I'm just walking and walking. I'm really tired. I'm scared. I'm hungry. I am disgusted. It's a mess. Then I started to smell something really good. And I thought, well, that's not like this place. I wonder what's up there. So I kind of hurried my steps. And then I noticed to the side, there was a guy sitting in a chair on one side of the road. And then on the other side of the road, there was this lady that was fixing all these tables, just lots and lots of tables, like a wedding party or something. And she had food just piled up, beautiful things that you don't ordinarily get. And oh, wow, it smell good and look good. And as I looked up in her face, I thought, well, this is another relative of mine. Again, I've seen two alive people. I don't know, I'm dead. So I asked her, I says, "Hi," I said her name. And she kind of looked at me like, "Who are you?" And I said, "I see you're busy. You're kind of just, I'm sorry to bother you. If you could just get me a little plate of anything you got here and a glass of water, I'll get out of your hair." And she says, "This is for the important people." I said, oh, well, sorry, excuse me. Yeah, no problem. So I got back on the road. Now I stayed on the road, and that was a relief for a while. And then I noticed up above in front of me, I could see figures walking around on that road, and it was dark, and they were going back and forth across the road. And I thought, well, why aren't they going on the road? That occurred to me. And then why are they just going around that road? And how am I going to get around this? Because nothing down here is safe. That's bound to be another trap. something negative. So how am I going to get around them? I don't know what to do. I thought, okay, I'll just pretend like I'm one of them. I'll just ruffle my clothes up a little bit, and then I'll put my eyes down, and they seem to be kind of bumping into each other and limping and all that and making weird animal noises. So I'll do the same thing. I'll just walk through. They won't notice me. Hopefully, I'll get to the other side and I'll keep going on the road. Well, I got in there and I'm walking and I'm keeping I know they're scary. They're scary things. I'm looking kind of out of the corners of my eyes, and they don't look healthy. They look like they're like got leprosy or something. There's something wrong with their skin, and they're dirty and they smell bad. So I'm kind of picking up my pace when they all froze at once, like somebody blew a whistle. And I stopped too, because I thought, well, I don't want to be the only one moving. And then I thought, oh, I bet they smelled me. I don't know what's happened. So I just kind of closed my eyes and stood there thinking, oh, maybe they'll start walking again, but they didn't. Uh, they were shuffling around, and I opened my eyes and I could see that the ones with like scarves and stuff, looked like the females, were going on the outside and leaving the men, obviously, what was left in the middle, and me. And I thought, this is going to be unpleasant. And one of them punched me. Another one knocked me down, and they jumped on me and did terrible sexual assault things. And when the last guy was finished, he got up and looked in my face and said, we've all got AIDS, and now you've got it. And you know what? You can't die. You're just going to get sicker and sicker. So I sat there as the beings backed off, and a woman demon was standing on the periphery, and she came over and looked at me and said, get up, you're one of us now. And I thought, well, what do I got to lose? I certainly don't want to stay here with these creatures. So I gathered myself and stood up, and she says, over there, there was more women over there, and they looked pretty beat up like I was. And she says, now you're coming with me, come on. And I thought, well, she's not as bad as the men demons, so maybe, again, there's a group of us now, maybe we could find a way to ditch her and find our way out of here. So I just got with the group, and she said single file, and we kind of lined up, and we'd been in kind of a foresty, dark place. It was dark, and all of a sudden we started walking, and the scene changed, and now it was tundra. It was flat snow as far as you could see. I thought, I don't believe this. Cold as hell is a real thing. So we're getting it in this line, and it's starting to snow. And again, there's no watches down there. There's no time. It's always this eternal now thing. And so I thought the only way I could gauge as to how long we were walking was that by the time she told us where we were going, the snow was chest high, and I could see this long trail into the behind us, where we had trudged one behind the other. So it was this shack, that beat up shack in the middle of freaking nowhere, and the snow's blowing, and she says, inside. And she shuffles us in there, and we're kind of sitting on the floor. There's no furniture. It's like a big wooden box, and the windows don't have any glass in them, and it's freezing in there. And so we're just sitting on the floor trying to huddle up to one another. And she just leans over and says, now we wait for customers. And we all kind of looked at one another and thought, I don't believe this. How can it get any worse? And she was just standing there walking back and forth. And I said, excuse me, I've been here a very long time, and I've been in some pretty bad situations, but this feels particularly dreadful. Is there something I don't know? She says, well, it's Christmas on Earth. That's always the worst day in hell. And I thought, hell? How can I be in hell? I'm alive. But then it was very obvious that this could be true. And I thought, I don't know, this is, oh my goodness. And then I just got mad. And I thought, okay, this will tick her off. So I started singing my favorite Christmas carol. And so I'm singing Away in a Manger, no crib for his bed. And she turned around and just said, shut up. And the other ladies are starting to kind of move, and we all say, okay, away in a manger, no crib for his bed. The little Lord. And as I got to that word, she shrieked, scared me half to death. I didn't know I was dead, and leapt at me. And I just closed my eyes, and the lights went out. And then the lights came up, but it was different. This time it was this warm, soft light that was just bliss and love and joy, and everything that had ever happened to me ever was gone. I was just swimming in this love and just absolutely, it's ineffable. You can't explain how wonderful this is. There's nothing on earth compares to it. And I was just so happy, and it was wonderful. And then all of a sudden it seemed to like shift a little bit, and I was kind of coalescing, and it seemed like there were walls now, and but it looked like maybe a church without anything in it, just the marble white walls. And I looked over, and out of this fog was my friend that had died the month before, and he looked great. And I thought, oh my gosh, the last time I saw him, he was dying of leukemia, and he looked awful. He'd had this infection. His whole face was swollen up on one side. His eye was all pussy and everything. And I thought, he looks great. And I thought, I remembered something. I looked over at a table. There was a big table, and it had a big book on it, and it was open halfway. And he was showing me something in it. And the only thing I remembered was I said, oh no, that's going to be too hard. I want to stay here with you. And now I'm looking at him and I'm saying, oh, he doesn't know he's dead, and I'm not going to be the one to tell him, and he just started chuckling. And I thought, wait a minute, I didn't say that out loud. Uh-oh. If he's dead, then I must be dead. And oh my God, we're in heaven. I said, this is wonderful. Why are we standing here? Let's go and see stuff. And he started walking slowly and over to me, and I thought, uh-oh. And he said, now, Mary Kay, you've got too much left to do. And I thought, that's the kiss goodbye. They're throwing me out of here. And I thought, no, no, absolutely not. And I really did. I crossed my arms, and I stamped my foot like a 2-year-old, and I said, no. Poof, the lights went out. Now the lights come up, and they're too darn bright again. And I'm looking straight ahead, and I see these figures moving, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm in hell again. And then one of the figures turns around and says, Mom's back. And I thought, what? And the other ones turn around, and it's my family. And I thought, what are they doing in hell? What's going on? And I couldn't talk. I had that thing in my throat. I had dwindled down after 3 weeks in a coma with a nasal tube with Ensure, which I was allergic to. I was 86 pounds. I had no muscle mass left at all, so I couldn't move. The next day, the doctor came in, they did the muscle testing all over. I could blink and move this finger. That was it. So I'm laying there thinking, okay, Kathy, you've got too much left to do, and then you can go home. This sucks. This is the worst joke I've ever had played on me at all. And I was very angry with everybody, especially my mom, my poor mother. She says, oh, Kathy, we had this prayer circle going around the world. We brought you back. And I thought, you terrible woman. I was so disappointed. I was angry, and I was upset, and I couldn't talk. And it was probably a good thing. I would have been rude, very, very rude. So the days then unfolded, I was told that, I heard the doctors over, overheard them saying, we don't know how brain damaged she's going to be. She probably won't be able to drive a car or work or something. She's going to need care. I'm 53. I had my own business. And so I was understandably a little depressed. And I finally, over in another week's period, I finally got that thing out of my throat and learned how to talk again, and croak like a frog for a while. And then they found a rehab hospital that would take me. My insurance gave me a month to get better. Okay. I can't do anything. I can't move. So I had a month, or else they were going to put me in a convalescent hospital, which would have been not good. So I worked what I had left of my fanny off and got myself out of there. So it was very distressing, not knowing what had happened to me. Nobody wanted to hear my story. I tried to tell them what happened and how wonderful heaven was, but my mother said, "What did you do that we don't know about that sent you to hell?" And I was like, "Oh, there's no good answer for that. I don't know." So anyway, I was very alone with that. I did, quote, try and go on with a sort of a normal life. I spent a lot of time writing what happened down. So I figured if I could just write it down and get it out of my head and stick it in a drawer, it would fade. But it never went away. It was always as fresh as it was the day before, just like it is now, 24 years later. So when I questioned the doctor about, you said I wouldn't be able to remember anything. Yeah, I finally realized that had happened in my soul, not in my brain. My brain was offline. So that was confusing and distressing. And it took 10 years before a series of synchronicities. This person knew a person and said that I need to talk to a person. I found myself in Seattle at an IANDS meeting with all these formerly dead people, and they were so nice, and they understood me and didn't think it was weird at all. They just said, only about 4% of the people have a distressing one, and that's really interesting. Would you tell us about it? And I thought, well, we're going to bring popcorn, they thought this was fun, and so it took a long time, but I finally was coerced into telling this to the clan, and they were, boy, at the edge of their seats the whole time, because all they ever hear is lunch with Jesus, or the angels and the beast and all that stuff in here. So by the very end, when we all got out, there was clapping. I mean, they were with me all the way, and they said, other people need to hear this, because there's 4 or 6 and 10 people out of the 10 people, they won't come forward. So that, over another period of years, became my mission. It was finding more of these people, finding the people who had written the books, and trying to figure out what the hell happened, and it's taken a long time, 4 years, I forget. I don't like to think about that. But yes, I believe that now, after I've talked to a lot of different people, that I manifested that I know now God is all loving and all forgiving and doesn't judge anybody. That's not God. God can't do that. We are all pieces of God. I mean, we're all souls, and that's pieces of God. We're all part of God. And so heaven, which is being reunited with God without our bodies, is just being with God. We're all love. And so that's very confusing for me, for people to say, well, then why did that happen to you? And all I can come up with is, as a Catholic, I was taught that I was going to go to purgatory, and I expected it, and I made it. And I'm sure there's some place for negative energy somewhere in the, I don't know, on the other side, but it has nothing to do with God. So I did learn from a lot of people that you get a life review, and it's not judgmental. It's just meant to show you how you did. We all plan our lives, what we want to learn. We come down with our soulmates. We play it out. This earth is school. And then we go home and we get to see how we did. Now, the thing about the life review, not only do you get to see your life, but they do have a way of kind of looking at it from another angle, where you get to experience how it felt to interact with you. So if you were kind and generous and all that, and that person you're interacting with had all those warm fuzzies, you get to feel that. But if you've been cranky and you've been mean and you caused someone pain and sorrow, you get to feel that too. And that's just a karma thing. That's not God judging. That's just what you put out, you get back. So that's pretty much what I learned so far. I've still got years to go. I hope not, but until I go home. But it's really changed how I feel about life. I think the biggest one is I don't feel like a victim anymore, knowing that I planned everything that I wanted to learn. And so when hellish things happen to me, I can look at that now differently. Instead of saying, God, why are you picking on me again? I can say, well, Kathy, you planned that, and there's a lesson here, and figure it out.
Thank you. I have so many thoughts. I'm trying to think where to begin. I think one of the things I thought was really interesting is that even though you went through this horrific, hellish experience, well, not that there's any time, but in heaven or hell, but what seemed like a shorter experience in heaven, just this brief set of events, was so blissful and so joyful that you were angry that you were back on Earth.
Oh yeah, I got robbed, man. I wasn't there very long.
That's
Yeah.
very interesting.
Yeah, it's just so wonderful. It's just indescribable. I mean, God is so, I don't know, love is everything. If you take every wonderful thing that ever happened to you in your whole life and then magnify it by, I don't want to be exaggerative, but a million or a billion, that's what it feels like. And it's just because you're with God, you're out of this human body and out of this human environment, and it's just love. It's really cool.
I believe you. um, so one of the things in your book that you didn't mention in this discussion, but I thought it was really profound, is that after your NDE, you were praying, you're asking God, like, I don't want to go through hell again. How do I not go to hell again? Please tell me. And I know you had like four lessons that he gave you. First was loving and kind. I don't remember all four of them. Do you want to
Yeah,
talk
that
about that?
that was quite a while afterwards because I was still haunted by, I was afraid that the demons would come back and get me, and whatever I had been doing, to that time wasn't working. So I thought, there's too many thou shalt nots. I need something positive. And so it came in it was four sets of two that came, like, I don't know, weeks, months apart, so I could remember them. And it was just Kathy, be loving and kind. And then it was merciful and forgiving, encouraging and grateful, non-judgmental and useful. And the non-judgmental, I think I probably hits most people between the eyes, just like it did me, because it's so easy to, in order to build ourselves up, to put others down. I don't know if you have that expression, experience, but I had to really look at that, and this useful thing that threw me for a while. And then I thought, no, I mean, it's real easy to give lip service or I don't know, try and look good, but if you don't really take your whole being and help others, you're wasting your life. So I say that almost every morning. And if you can't remember it all, just loving and kind, no matter what situation comes up. You're in traffic, you're waiting behind this long line in a supermarket, whatever it is, just to take a breath and to say loving and kind, loving and kind. And you can come up with then, it happens a lot to me now because I do that. I'll feel this like little rush of ability to turn to that next person and say, gee, I wonder why that lady got in the 15 only line and she's got two baskets, and we just, and not being mean, just saying, I don't know, maybe she doesn't read. But just lighten it up, give people a break, take a breath. Life's not all that serious. And when it does get serious, loving and kind, loving and kind.
Excellent. Yeah, I really loved reading that list in your book, and I was trying to remember all of them. I got most of them in my head still. Um, yeah, yeah, loving, kind, merciful, forgiving, useful. That was one in the
Yeah,
book.
encouraging, to people. People are so depressed and just encouraging. I'm here for you. If you need to talk, I'm here. Or you want to go to a movie, something. And grateful. That's huge. Anytime you look at anything now, they're saying gratitude is something that will turn you around every time. If every night you go to bed and say, I need new tires and dinner got burned or what, but go to bed and say, it was beautiful today. The weather was wonderful. My mom called. I saw, a really cute dog, whatever. Just being grateful. Just
Yeah.
let you relax. It's being positive.
Yeah, as you were listing those, I realized that since I read them, I've learned a lot about the non-judgmental one.
That'll sneak up on you a lot, won't it?
Oh yeah, yeah. It's so unconscious because there's so many things that you could become judgmental about. There's so many things that mistakes people make, or mistakes that you make up yourself that you're judging yourself about.
Yeah.
And listening to the NDEs has really helped me a lot actually because well described like you said we're all love, we're all part of the love, or some people say we're part of God, God's in everything and we're part of God, or that we're children of God. And I try to look at someone and see them that way and be like, you're part of God, you're
Yeah.
like a holy being,
Mhm.
and that's really helpful to me, just
Mhm.
remembering that. And like the mistakes, it's like all on the surface, it's not
Yeah,
the true nature of the person. And
right.
that to me, that's just, it's life changing to know that.
It is. I had an experience one time in Vancouver. I was late and I was running to meet a friend, and there was a man sitting in a wheelchair, and he obviously couldn't move much, and he had a little thing on there that said, please, I need food or something. And I ran by him and I thought, nope, that's not right. Take 5 minutes, got in my purse. I found a $5 bill. I went back. And the thing that I did that was best is I looked him in the eyes, and I thought to myself, Jesus is in there, right? Yeah, or God is in
uh
there. And I put the $5 in his little book, and he could hardly move, but he grabbed my hand. Oh, it scared me half to death. And he just looked at me, but it was such a warm glow of light that came back, and I just felt like I just been filled with a little, that little tiny heaven thing,
uh
and I just kind of walked off, and I thought, wow, that was powerful. So yeah, taking time to look into people's eyes, especially people that, I was in a wheelchair for a while and I was invisible, boy, and that's terrible. If somebody's in a wheelchair, I will always say, how's your day going? Or, lovely day, isn't it? And I'll pat them on the hand, or I'll look there in their eye. And especially homeless people. There's another time where you can think, oh, well, boy, there, but for the grace of God go I. But think, no, 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 no. You're right. Like you said, God's in there. He chose a really difficult life this time, and I have he has given me an opportunity to be kind, and just to look in his eyes and say good morning. And they look shocked, good
hmm.
morning, they say back, because we're all just hiding in these bodies. We're souls hiding in these bodies, and we need to recognize one another more often. It's really
Beautiful.
rewarding.
Yeah, that's a great story. um so okay, so many things. All right, so um I studied a handful, or actually more than a handful, of these DNDE experiences now. There's Angie Fenimore's, Ian McCormick's, and then yours, and there's some other ones too. Howard Storm, of course, too. The first part of his was very distressing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'm noticing a lot of patterns. And one thing I notice is what gets them out of the hellish realm is very similar.
Yeah.
So for you, it was the Christmas hymn. And
Yeah.
then for Howard Storm, he was trying to think of anything that he could think of about God or heaven or even God Bless America, anything like
Right,
that.
right,
Yeah,
exactly.
I think the one that got him out was the old the children's hymn, like Jesus loves me,
It's me,
this I
yeah.
know.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah.
that was the kicker.
And people say to me, well, why in the heck didn't you say that in the first place? Well, A, you don't know you're dead. You don't
Right.
know you're in this realm. You have no idea because it's just real. It's realer than real, actually, because it stays with you. And then to me, it dawned on me like at last, I think the last podcast I did yesterday was it was almost like they talk about having a safe word if you're in a situation where you're playing a game or whatever, and if you say that safe word, everything has to stop, the game's over. And I think that was my safe word. I was not to I chose to have that experience because that's my job on earth. One of my jobs, the job now, but is to come back and tell people this story. And so I think that was the safe word. When I finally got to that point where that came into my mind, it was time for that to be over.
Mhm.
And that's when I was to get out, but not before I learned all that other stuff ahead of time. It's scary in a good way to think that we really do have control. We've planned it down to the last detail, and we still keep our free will. If things aren't going the way we think they should, we get off track sometimes because we are trapped in this human body with this human mind. We still have the free will to say, no, that's not the right road for me. I'm going to do this. Um, so I used to think that God planned everything, this is God's will, this is God's plan. I don't believe that anymore. God gave it me a free will to do whatever I want, to come down and learn things, and this is what I chose, and God's not going to interfere, because that's taken away my free will. So it just puts a whole new spin on prayer for me. I'm still kind of wrestling with that one. um, I don't pray, God, take this away from me anymore. I just say, I, I pray for me to be strong and figure it out and do the right thing. You know, uh,
Mm.
gives you a little more control. I don't like not being in control. My hell was a mess. I didn't like that at all. The other thing with the believing that I made my own hell was the hellish experiences that I could come back later and recognize. I took those from my life and I made those experiences bigger and worse. The other thing was the live people that I saw there. When I came back, I thought, why were they there? They're alive. But I had a message to give to each of those two people. It dawned on me later. And plus, you start hearing things. You get the voice when you get back. It's like your conscience or whatever, but it's really hyper vigilant and aware. When you're back, you hear it a lot. So I know I had to take this person, I had to tell her this, and I had to tell that lady that. And this first person, it's really trippy to say, look, I was in hell and I saw you there. It's a really great opening to conversation. And they go, what? And I'm supposed to tell you this. This is really a dangerous thing that you've got going on in your life. And if you don't veer off that path, you're going to be in trouble. Well, we got in a couple of arguments and I haven't heard from her in 22 years. So that one didn't pan out so well. The other one I told this person, and she was in the middle of a thing with her husband, and it was a mess, and she was so upset and all this. She said, I can't talk to you about this now. I said, this is the mess you're in. It has to do with the food and the whatever. And so like 3 years later, she's gotten divorced. We're at a Christmas party, and she comes, hands me a glass of wine. She's, all right, I'm ready to listen to this hell thing again. And I told her, she says, you were right. I mean, that is right on. I was right in the middle of a hellish experience with him having me leave what I was doing for my life, work, and become his cook so that I could entertain for him to climb the corporate ladder. And I lost myself and I was in hell, and you got me out. You gave me the strength to say, whoa, I don't need to be in this hell. And she got out. Now she's happy. She's married to a really cool guy. And yeah, so that one worked. 1 out of 2 ain't
Oh,
bad.
that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's interesting. You were able to see while you were in hell, things things about them that needed to be changed, personality traits or things that needed to be improved. And it's interesting. It's kind of like my view on the negative entities is that they exist so that we can recognize what is good or evil, and so
It's
we
cool.
can, yeah, because you were shown what was wrong, so that you can go and correct it.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Because yeah, we don't always realize that, huh? It's maybe that's the way our culture, our family, our religion tells us to be, and we just go along with it, but maybe it's really not going in the right direction. And for me, that was big. Yeah, I had to change a lot of what I believed. A lot of people, I'd say most of the people that come back are no longer religious, they're spiritual. There's just a lot of man-made rules in religion. And I think over the centuries, the millennia, they've wandered off the path. But that's individual to everybody. I don't try and, if it works for you, fine. I just say beware. If you're in a situation where your culture, your religion, your family is saying, if you do that, you're going to hell. That's not right. Stop and take a look at that. You know, they can't do that. If God won't condemn you, how can they?
Hmm. Yeah, we could take a lot of lessons from the the life reviews in the NDEs and how Jesus um, looks at that person,
With
you
love.
know, with love, and they
Mhm.
just, he's not looking down on them for anything, and they just work through the experiences.
And
And
it's not
yeah,
always Jesus. I mean, people see
yeah,
Buddha,
it's true.
they see whoever they have their concept of God. I think that God is just not one thing. God is whatever will reach people. And that's why we have to be careful to say, if you're not my religion, you're not going to heaven, because that's not true.
Yeah. So I do want to one clarification on that. So while people of all different faiths are in heaven, I, I, it's not a perfect rule that what you believe is what you see, because I know there are stories too where, like, like there was a Muslim guy who saw Jesus, or there are some people who see Buddha, but my the only ones I'm aware of, there was one who saw Buddha and Jesus, and then there's actually both of them did. So that was interesting.
Well, all the atheists
um,
that are there, atheists get up there and
that's true
I've
too.
had people
That
tell me, I don't believe in God. I don't believe in the hereafter. I don't care what you say. And I just say, you're in for such a nice surprise, because you're going to stand there and go, what's this? It doesn't matter what you believe. God is God,
yeah.
you know?
So
Yeah.
yeah, so yeah, the belief system certainly doesn't seem to be determining anything, but
Yeah.
yeah, it seems to have something to do with from what I gather, the state of mind and the personality, and especially at that moment, because you could be, you know, having just like angry thoughts in one day, and I suppose that would affect your experience too, because I think what's happening, maybe I'm wrong, this is just my take on this.
Yeah.
What seems to be happening is that it's kind of like what you send out is returned to you, karma, or it's also biblical actually, that what you send out is returned to you in your thoughts. And I think that's actually happening here in this world too. I was thinking about that today. Um, if hell is kind of a state of mind, which is what it seems to be, um, then if we're upset and angry and fearful here, we're already in hell. We just don't, we're just still in our bodies and we don't realize what we're manifesting because it
Mhm.
doesn't come to us instantaneously.
Yeah.
But when you're dead,
But
everything's telepathic and things just arise automatically,
yeah, but you don't have a mind. When you're on the other side, you don't have a human mind anymore. You've just got a soul. It's all one piece. So it's tricky. There's a lot we don't know, but unless you've been there, I mean, when you've
Yeah.
been
Yeah, I've
there, you
never been there.
understand. That's what was so cool about going in those IONS meetings. It didn't matter what I told them. They all go, yeah, 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 I get it. I know. And they knew. They weren't just placating me. They really knew. And so that was what. And there, oh, I've got it. Where's my statistics? There are like 144 million people on the planet right now who've been at NDEs. It's really there's a
Wow.
lot of people coming back and spreading this message. It's a time I think that people are awakening and things are changing, and Earth will never be perfect because it's full of human beings. This is really just a school and a place we hang out. And also, the fun thing is there are lots of universes and lots of planets, and there is reincarnation, and there's plenty of places to go. And what I've heard is Earth is the toughest gig you're going to run into. It's got the lowest density and it's the hardest planet. So you have
Yeah.
to be a really brave soul to come here in the first place.
Yeah. Oh, so I wanted to say, so when you said we don't have a human mind, do you mean like a physical brain? Because I know you have thoughts there. What do you mean by that?
Uh, your spirit doesn't have a brain and it doesn't have a mind. It's
Hmm.
just, it knows.
Ah, I see what you're saying now.
Yeah. I mean,
It's the,
everything's,
yeah,
you see, we get trapped in this body. And so we've only got perception of so much. But when you get out of the body, you just know everything. It's not, we're hiding in these bodies. We're limited by the amount we can see and hear and touch and feel. I mean, they're saying now it's just, there's so much more that just human eyes can't see that's here. We just don't see it because our eyes can't pick it up. And like the dark matter, I
yeah,
mean, that's God. That's God is everywhere. God is
yeah, I think,
everything.
yeah,
God is everything. We get the sense that we're separate, but we're not. Only when we're in these
yeah,
bodies is the illusion of separateness.
yep.
Kind of fun, huh?
Yeah, no, this is stuff that I've been learning, and it's just fun to hear you say, to be reiterating that. It's just like, it's very confirming.
Yeah, go hang out at some of the IONS meetings. They've got sharing groups of all sorts all the time. And the conventions are a blast. I mean, you've got 700 people showing up that, all have had these experiences. There's so much energy in these things. We blow out the lights, the air conditioning. We just laugh when we go into a conference and all the lights go out. Everybody says, okay, well, they're working on the lights. We'll just kind of sit here in the dark, wait for it to go back on. Yeah, they're very positive people. I always hate leaving and going back to the real world. It's really fun. Nice people.
Yeah. Oh, and just for audience members, you don't have to have had a near-death experience to go to an IONS meeting.
No,
And they
no,
have Zoom meetings. You don't have to travel necessarily.
all the time for all different. They've got uh, groups that meet for the Jewish, all these different. Everybody's welcome. It's we're all just souls. We're all just souls, brothers and sisters.
So another question that I had, I was trying to figure out what the sense of timelessness must have been like, because you said that it felt like it was 2 years. Um, but I know that time's a funny thing when you're on the other side because you don't have a perception of time. I guess time's really just an illusion anyway. But you have events that occur although they don't even necessarily seem to be in a sequence. Um, and so I'm thinking, was it 2 years worth of events? Did it feel like 2 years? Like how people will be if they're in a class at school and they hate this class and they're just like waiting for it to be over and they're just watching the clock. And so, I
Yeah,
mean, I can imagine it, if time flies when you're having fun, this is the opposite.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah, and I had nothing to do when I got back. I mean, for a while I couldn't move at all, and they'd leave me for hours at a time, and I had nothing but my thoughts. And so I thought, well, okay, I'm gonna come at this from like I'm writing a book or something because I was a writer, and I thought I'm just gonna detail it out in my mind because I can't move anything and see how, look at a clock and just kind of feel how long it might have been. And I played it out and I kept going in the road. I was on that darn road for a long time. And so I came up with 2 years. And I thought, well, how could that be? I mean, it was only 3 weeks. And I can't answer that. I just kept getting in my head 2 years.
Hmm,
I don't know if I can't explain it. It's so
interesting.
weird to be. Have you ever been in a casino? Did you ever go like to Vegas or something? Okay, you
No.
go in Vegas and they've got no windows, all right, and they've got no clocks. So you go in there probably 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and you're just playing. We played the nickel machines back in those days, and you're walking, and then they've got a little show going on over here. So you sit down, and you watch the show, and you get up, and you think, oh, I'm kind of hungry. So they got a little buffet. You go over there, and then you're playing the slots again, and oh gosh, they're bringing you free drinks, and you're chitting and chatting, and you're having a good time, and you think we better get going. It's got to be about 9 o'clock. We've been here for 6 hours at least, and you just and you step outside, and it's pitch dark, and it's 2 in the morning, and you go, what? It didn't seem that long. Again, like you're saying, you were having fun. So yeah, I don't know. It just must have been elastic or something. That's all I can say.
Interesting.
I can't explain it.
Just
It's
a feeling then.
well, yeah. It like you say, when you're taking a test or you're gonna go do something fun after school, and that clock, you swear it stopped.
Hmm.
It's just barely moving. And yeah, the experience was so horrible. And of course, I shorten up telling it to people. People don't want to be listening to me for 4 hours straight. Um, and I speed some stuff up, and some of it I would rather not say out loud. And
Hmm.
yeah, it's weird. I try not to dwell on it. It's really hard at night to put all that away, especially if I've told
Hmm.
the story during the day. It's just still haunting. It's unpleasant.
Hmm. I hope you can find full healing from all of that.
Well, I know that was what I chose to do. I chose to have that experience. I chose to come back, and God is good. I mean, laying in that bed, unable to breathe even, and being told I had too much left to do and I couldn't come home till I got it done. That was tough. Talk about having to have faith.
Hmm.
Because now I've had over 1 million views. I'm getting close to 2 million. 2 million. I mean, me.
Wow.
So God worked it out. I planned it with God. Who knows? It's working, and
Yeah.
I'm not an exceptional person. So um, I'm just grateful that I'm able to fulfill my promise, my plan.
Yeah. Um, yeah, maybe I'll one more comment here. So, I'm trying to understand better the kind of the mechanics of what happens when you're a spirit. Seems like things happen by projection. So, like, people die and they find themselves looking like they're wearing the same clothes. Assuming they're not an orb. Sometimes they're an orb. And it's like that's funny, because I don't think spirit, has clothes. It's just it's a projection of the mind.
I haven't had that experience. And like I say, I didn't look at myself. I was just me. I never noticed.
Hmm.
I mean, I was walking. I just didn't see anything different. I don't think I was an orb or anything, but I didn't really stop and look at my hands or look at my
Yeah,
feet or anything. You're just looking out. Uh,
yeah. So that's that. Well, I know in your story you described
ah,
feel,
I did. Yeah, the clothes. I remember that.
yeah, and
Got
you
attacked.
mentioned being hungry,
Yeah.
which is really strange to me to think you
Well,
could
I
be
didn't know I
hungry.
was dead. I didn't know I was dead. I don't know. It smelled good. So that, yeah, I had my senses. I was, I could hear things, I could see things, I could smell things. I obviously could touch things. Um, yeah. So that says a lot about when the body's dead, it's not feeling or thinking or doing anything. So it's really the spirit or the that gets in your brain that if you're a paraplegic, you can't move your arms and legs. It's this We got these little tiny human brains, and there's no way we're going to figure this all out. But it is fun to kind of think about it.
Yeah, yeah. I guess I just thought if that it fit my theory of projection that what's happening maybe is that you believe in hunger and you smell the food and so you think I'm hungry, I want to eat it, and
Right.
oh my goodness, so it makes me think, I wonder how much we're projecting in our daily lives from our
Oh
own
yeah.
thoughts,
Yeah.
like tiredness is one that I've been noticing. How much are we tired because of an emotional thing?
Correct.
So we think, oh, my body's tired.
Hmm.
Well, maybe it's your mind that's projecting the
Your
tiredness.
soul is
Yeah,
tired.
your spirit, really,
Yeah, it's
your
just kind
yeah,
of down, kind of just thinking, wow, this is a long life I got here.
yeah,
I like when the people pop out of their bodies, have it during surgery and they're hanging over and they're
yeah.
reading things and recognizing and remembering what people
Report
said.
it
Like,
back and
but
yeah,
they didn't have any ears, they didn't have any eyes, but yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah.
your
Somehow
projection
they're
thing kind of fits into that.
yeah,
It just comes out and I don't know. It's kind of fun.
yeah. So yeah, I just think there's a lot to learn from the idea of projection and how it works in
Yeah.
NDEs and in our life, and that's something I'm learning about. Okay, well, could probably
Okay.
go on forever, but
It's been fun, Matthew. I really appreciate it. Really
yeah,
enjoyed it.
thanks.
I
Yeah.
enjoyed you, and I wish you well in your endeavors. You're doing good work out there, doing something very valuable, I think. Don't you think? You're fulfilling your purpose. You picked
Yeah.
to do this, and here you are doing it.
Yeah, actually, wasn't actually my idea, interestingly
Ah,
enough. It was uh basically God told me to. I mean, you guess what they call the downloads
yeah,
in the NDEs. I like that language. It's a got a
yeah,
heavenly download.
right.
Because I'd been doing a little bit of documentary work, nothing too major, but I it had gone splendidly well.
Hmm.
And I thought, wow, I seem to have a knack for this. And this thought came in my head so clear, and I knew this was the spirit, and it
Hmm.
says you should make a documentary on NDEs. And I'd done a little study on NDEs. I'd read George Ritchie's book, and I'd watched probably 50 NDE videos just over years. Um, and I thought, oh wow, that would be really interesting. Like really, is that going to be a good thing? Okay, all right, they'll try it
Yeah,
out, and then
yeah.
it absolutely explodes online. 10 to 20,000 views per
Wow.
video when I started this, and so I thought, oh, I guess this is supposed to happen. But then Janet Tarantino, then who had three NDEs, reached out to me, and she said that she felt guided to reach out to me specifically.
Oh,
So then it was another confirmation, like, okay,
oh
this is
yeah.
definitely something I'm supposed to be doing. So,
Definitely. Yeah,
so
those are
it's just,
synchronicities. Yeah.
yeah, synchronicities.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I just love it. And it's such a miracle So I really appreciate the whole opportunity and be able to talk
Yeah,
to you. And I mean, I read your book. It's a huge book. I read the whole
I
thing,
know.
and was I'll never forget it. And just talking to you now, it's just like, wow, here we are now. We're talking, and I
Yeah.
get to explore all these things. This is fun.
It's trippy. It's a gift. It's to be this aware. It just gives so much more dimensions to your life and your purpose, and I think it's wonderful. I feel
Yeah.
very blessed. Yeah. Well, good for you. I'm glad that we
Yeah.
got to meet. We planned this divorce before we got down here, and now
Yeah.
we've touched base and encouraged each other, and there we go.
Thank
Cool.
you. So before we close out, can you just tell the audience how they can contact you or how they can learn more or anything like that, in reference to your book or
Um, my book, Misfit in Hell to Have an Expat, is on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and any place you can want to buy a book. I've done it in Kindle and audio and just about any way you need to get a book, so that everybody has a chance to touch base with it. I have a website that's the same as the name of the book, and I'm on Facebook and LinkedIn, and I don't give out my phone number, but that's about the best I can do. I get lots of comments, and it's so difficult because on one I had 3,500 comments, and I started going. I thought I'm going to answer every single one of these. My wrist was like this, and I thought I can't do that. I'll just bless all these people. I'll just bless them. But I do appreciate them. Some of them aren't very complimentary, but that's cool. Whatever.
yeah.
Yeah.
Those always happen.
Yeah.
Just gotta
Can't please
ignore
everybody.
it. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.